So, Friedrich is the current CEO of Molecular Health, which he co-founded in 2004, and recently became the CEO in 2016. And also together with Dietmar Hopp and Christoph Hettig, he co-founded Divini, the life science investors, in 2005. And since then, he's also held the role of managing partner of Divini and serves as chairman on the board of companies which are a part of the portfolio. And Molecular Health is a mines big data sets to help predict patient outcomes and assess how effective drugs will be at treating a specific condition. I believe that's correct in saying so. And the company is also using artificial intelligence to help predict how accurate a given clinical trial will be, hopefully an invaluable tool for drug developers. So, I understand, as I said before, you founded Molecular Health in 2004, but you didn't become CEO until 2016. Why the big gap?
First of all, it's not, shall I take this one? Well, it's not the biggest goal to become CEO. That's the first one. The second thing is I've always been the board or chairman of the board, so I've always been close to the company. And in 2016, I mean, to be open but not, how to say, too direct. I mean, the person who ran that before didn't work well for whatever reason. Leave it open. Why? And then we said, okay, then let me do this.
Okay, fair enough. And as I said, so you founded Divini shortly after you founded Molecular Health. What prompted you to co-found that, and did you enjoy your time working there?
Well, it was a complete coincidence, the whole thing. I mean, I did not intend to found Divini at that time. It was really an anecdote, and I can tell that here a bit, because I didn't know Dietmar Hopp. Well, everyone knows Dietmar Hopp, yeah, but I didn't know him personally, and we met by chance, and then I've seen that he bought a biotech company in 2004 from insolvency. It was Heidelberg Pharma, and I asked him why he did it. Yeah, no purpose. And then he said, I think you should talk to Christoph Hettig. This is his lawyer. Okay. So I met Christoph, and I said, why shall we speak? I don't need a lawyer. And he said, well, I mean, obviously he wants to do something in biotech. I said, he didn't say that. Christoph says, yeah, but I know him, yeah, I mean, this is what he wants. And I said, yeah, but what does he want? And Christoph said, no idea, you tell us, yeah. I said, but he didn't say that. So we went back to him, and I said, well, I understand you may be interested to do something in biotech, so give us a bit guidance, yeah. And he said, I have no idea, yeah, you tell us. I said, yeah, I mean, we cannot become Pfizer, so we have to confine a bit. He said, yeah, I mean, so tell me, what are the options? I said, look, biotech is very dangerous, as you know, yeah, I mean, most things go wrong. And it's a synonym for wrong things happen at the wrong time. So, look, we can either do what everyone does, which is very dangerous, or we do what no one does, what is even more dangerous, but if it works, even better. And then he said, I think everyone knows I played soccer. I dare to shoot on the goal from 25 meters. I take the riskier one. I said, okay. I said, then, that was 2005, and I said, okay, then we do three things. We do immuno-oncology, neurodegenerative disorders, and precision medicine. So this is how that then happened and came together, and was, okay, with Molecular Health, I had already, of course, the precision medicine company in mind. And in 2004, I also met Ingmar Hör, so I knew CureVac, so mRNA, which is pretty hip right now, as you know. I helped DKFZ to buy out Apogenics asset from insolvency, so that was checkpoint antibodies in today's language. And I met Andrea Pfeiffer, so from Nestle. So I already had some things in mind, yeah. But honestly, immuno-oncology in 2005 was a topic. Another anecdote. I mean, you know, DKFZ. Ottmar Wiesler was the chairman, the president of the DKFZ at that time, and I told him about immuno-oncology, and he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Friedrich, I wish you good luck with all the other companies, because immuno-oncology won't work." You know, that was 2005.
Yeah, there we go. So I understand at Divini you have a different approach to investing than most of the investors in Europe, in that you invest only in a few companies and in the hundreds of millions. Like, why is that, and does it work better?
I don't say it works better. Again, philosophy of Dietmar Hopp. I mean, Divini is not a fund. Divini is a company, and so we're not confined by time and so forth, which is definitely an advantage, because, I mean, if you want to build a truly cash flow positive therapeutic company, it takes you 15 to 20 years, period. If it works. If it doesn't work, it takes even longer. So funds have lifetimes of 10 years, and they have to do investment and disinvestment in that time. This is not why funds are better or worse. They just have to, in that period where that company grows, have to invest and go out again. This is not easy. It's not easy for the fund, and it's not easy for the company. I mean, we have the privilege, if it works, if it doesn't work, then not, to stay long in there and really build a company, allow a company to really build and make it theoretically independently successful. I mean, of course, Dietmar and we want to have a return, but it's not that it has to happen in 4 or 5 years. So this is why we can focus on building these companies, and why so much money, because I mean, this is also, I mean, everyone here in this area knows Dietmar Hopp. I mean, he goes like, I mean, do we believe in the company or do we not believe in the company? Okay, we believe in the company. Okay. Yeah, but why then wait for others to invest? Why don't we invest? I said, it's your money. Yeah? I mean, you need to decide. Yeah, of course, if we believe in the company, we do as much as we can. Yeah, so this is his view. It's a very unusual view, I would say. This is why in average, there's about 100 million in per company, so the risk is very high, but if it goes well, the success is high. I mean, everyone heard about CureVac, maybe, mRNA. I mean, we have 80% of this company. I mean, not bad in these days.
So, I mean, you're on the board of some of the most successful biotech companies in Germany. I mean, what are the biggest milestones that have been reached recently, and what do you think are some of the challenges ahead?
Well, milestone. I think we're patient focused. I mean, milestones. We find milestones achieved when programs reach milestones or parameters where you really bring a drug to the market, or where you really bring a therapy or whatever to the market. So this is, I think, the really true milestones. I mean, otherwise, I mean, we sold a company, we brought several to the stock market and earned good money with some of them, did lose some money with dropouts. I mean, as a matter of fact, from the 15 companies we invested, 5 failed. Happens, 10 did not. And so I think it's not a bad performance. I think everyone in that industry that tries to give the impression everything goes well, I would not believe. Yeah, it is just not true. So I would say the performance is good. Can always be better, can always be worse, but basically, and I should say, and this is, except for 2 companies in Switzerland, only Germany. This is the only thing Dietmar said. Dietmar Hopp said, I made my money in this area, and I think I owe it to this country and to this area to invest the money here. So all the investments are in Central Europe, and the majority of the investments is here in Germany.
So, I mean, how you're now back working as the CEO of Molecular Health, so how did working in investment differ from heading up a biotech company?
It's completely different. I mean, and I would say I'm not a typical investor. Yeah, I mean, I'm more. I think I'm more an entrepreneur who really likes to found and build companies myself. And okay, having the fortune and the luck to having met Dietmar Hopp and the ability to co-invest with him helps certain things. But but I'm not the number cruncher. Yeah, I'm not the guy, you know, who goes and, I don't know, tweaks numbers and does these kind of things. I mean, of course, I know the numbers from 0 to 9 and know how to understand them, but for me, it's more important and more exciting to find the right people and to create a team that really, really believes in what it does and really goes the extra mile to do what no one has done before. And if that works well, then it's also good for the investor. And that is a bit the role I have. So yeah, I'm representing investments, but I come from the truly, I come from the truly company building side.
Mm. So, I mean, personalized medicine or precision medicine, however you like to call it, has become somewhat of a sort of a buzzword over the last 10 years. I mean, why do you think it's so important?
Yeah, I think I think the answer, I mean, it's not easy, it's not difficult to answer, but the way I used to answer is the following. I mean, sometimes I ask people, audience, so what do you think was the last paradigm shift in medicine? Okay, no one dares to answer because you're afraid you say something wrong. Yeah, okay, I get that. I say 1680. Why? Because this was the invention of the microscope. Why is that so important? Because it allowed all the imaging technologies to come, which today is very important in diagnosis in medicine. And I don't want to be disrespectful to all the improvements in other areas, MRT and so, but that allowed medicine to look beyond the eye. Now two paradigm shifts are happening at the same time. The one is the so-called, I call it the molecular dimension hits medicine. It's the molecular X-ray, if you will. And that is a complete, I mean, I'm sure most of you understand, and those of you who don't, ask your neighbor. But I mean, this is probably the most, it's not the only, but probably the most precise and important information you can get about health and disease, so to say, about prevention and individual therapies. But that needs to be understood. It is not trivial. And we're starting with a genome now, and but all of you who do know, I mean, even the genome is only the beginning. Yeah, so that is one thing why it is becoming so important, this molecular dimension. And the other one is everything you can do in scientific computing today. I mean, there are the algorithms, there are the calculators, there are, I mean, the processes that allow you to contextualize and integrate and understand all these diverse and different data, which is something even 20 years ago was not possible. So these two things come together, and together with everything else, like imaging and other information, creates a complete new dimension of understanding health and disease. And this is why I think this is the timing now, why this is becoming so it's becoming prominent because it's becoming possible.
Okay. I mean, another big buzzword that's been sort of going on a lot recently is sort of the big data word. So, I mean, I know that's obviously a big thing for molecular health. How are you using these big data sets to predict health outcomes?
Yeah, I mean, big data is, I mean, there are no small data anymore. Yeah, I mean, looking forward, there's only bigger data. Yeah, so big data is like, okay, give me a break. Yeah, I mean, I mean, I think the challenge in healthcare is a particular one because the challenge of healthcare data is two things. First of all, they are incomplete. We still don't know everything. You know, that's a big difference compared to playing check or flying to the Mars. When you play check, you have complete data sets, and flying to the moon the same. So a calculator always beats man. In healthcare, we don't know everything. When you don't know everything, you have gaps, and then you do mistakes. Yeah, that's the one thing. The other thing is these data are super, super dirty. It's in part untrue. I mean, people think 60 to 80% of publications are just wrong. So that means 60 to 80% of science is wrong. I mean, wrong not intentionally or willfully, but just it is not what it should be. And it's super difficult to sort that out, and we don't know the truth. But now you want to use these data to support therapy decision or drug development or whatever. So you're running with some risks in these data. And I think the only way to overcome this, and this is a bit the German engineering soul that we all have, I mean, is to put a lot of emphasis on the curation of these data. And I think this is, I mean, okay, I'm speaking a bit about ourselves, but this is actually where the most good part of the most energy goes into. It's not the big data, it is clean data. And clean data allow you to still do mistakes, but maybe do less mistakes.
Okay. So your MH Predict tool, I think you told me about, which predicts clinical trial outcomes using artificial intelligence. It sounds super promising. And just to clarify, I think you said that most predictions predict clinical trial results to around 50-55%. Is that right? And I think yours was around 80. Is that correct? So AI in healthcare, it's been talked about for a while, and by big players like IBM without an awful lot to show for it in terms of outcome and profit. I mean, why do you think that is?
What was the IBM question?
Oh, sorry. I mean, IBM, I think they were talking about IBM earlier this year about how the IBM Watson hasn't really given as much as it promised, and you know, there's been a lot of hype about it, and a lot of talk about it, but there hasn't been much in the way of outcomes seen. I just wondered if you could comment on that.
Okay, there's a few points. I think, I mean, starting with IBM Watson, I think IBM Watson is not good or bad or right or wrong. IBM Watson works for what it's supposed to work. But I think what IBM did not do well is position this rightly. I mean, IBM Watson is a capturing technology. But then the work starts. I mean, if you capture all the data, I mean, so now you have to clean them and sort them and understand them. And that is something no single technology can do. So the mistake, if you will, IBM is not Watson. The mistake is in overselling Watson, over-promising what Watson can do. You need a deep domain expertise to understand these data that you capture and to clean them and contextualize them. That is something IBM does not have in its genes because it's not what IBM is good at. So I'm not negative on IBM Watson. The only thing I'm a bit, because it hits us too, is I'm a bit disappointed is that it raised the right expectations what technology can do, but with the wrong technology. That is what I would say IBM did not do very well. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I mean, it will happen. It will come. It will come anyway. And I think Predict is one of the examples. I mean, well, I cannot really even tell you why Predict works. I mean, I can tell you why others doesn't work. I mean, so far predicting trials goes back to tables, retrospective tables that look at different indication, different molecular classes, small molecule, large molecules, and they look back and look phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 successes in the history, and they try to project that to the future, which is, everyone knows, is not a very clever way to do. And bankers tell me that they use these tables and they are 55% right. So 50% is dice, roll the dice, yeah? 55 is 10% better than that. And they spend trillions of money to do that. And what we did, and it was a banker's idea, I hate to say that, yeah, but anyway, what we did is, I mean, we have this, we collect and clean and contextualize data from molecular, clinical, medical, and drug sources, so I think pretty much complete for this endeavor. So what we did is, and we're not AI specialists, so we took AI technologies off the shelf and ran that over these databases with a clinical trial databases and found that with certain features and parameters, we are about 80% right, and that is a pretty robust number. I mean, we ran that again, we modified things, we added things, we change things, we always come with this 80% number, and 80% still means 20% wrong. Yeah, so a single trial can still be mispredicted, but if you take a portfolio of 10 and you're 8 times right, if you're a pharma company, you're great. If you're an investor, you're rich. Yeah, so you have to, it's a numbers game. Yeah? You have to be able to run at least 10 or more trials, because then you come into the statistics of that tool.
So, I mean, you were saying that you thought that the problem that IBM had is they were using the wrong technology. I mean, I was going to ask what you were doing to kind of avoid those problems, but like applying the right technology and for the right problem, or I mean...
No, as I said, I mean, Watson is a capturing technology, and we use several capturing technologies. But the capturing is only the beginning. Yeah, I mean, then when you have the data, you have to clean them, you have to contextualize them, to organize them, to write all these dictionaries. I mean, a really simple example. Gleevec, the drug Gleevec, has 124 entries in databases worldwide. If you miss them, if you send a query to the system, you miss the entry. And there are 40,000 drugs, and 40,000 drugs have more than one entry. So you have to do the painful work of writing these dictionaries. You have 22,000 genes. Every gene has more than one entry. You have 500,000 proteins. So someone needs to do that work. Watson does not do that work. It cannot do that work. It has to be done by people who use technology to help them, but it's a damned manual work, and I mean, it took us 10 years to get there.
So obviously some of the technology that you're building up is quite complex, and I know you also have a tool that is for doctors to help them to diagnose patients more correctly, or to help them to do that. I mean, how do you approach persuading healthcare professionals to use tools who don't have a data analysis background, who maybe are a bit older and haven't had the experience of learning about molecular medicine so much when they were studying? I mean, how do you approach that?
Well, it's a bit a commercialization question. I mean, so we have 3 offerings. I mean, the one, as you say, this is therapy decision support. This is for treating oncologists. I mean, it could be, in the future, it can be any disease, because any disease has a molecular component, except a broken neck, which is not a disease. And so starting with oncology, because oncology is a truly genetic disease, and there's the most money in the game. I hate to say that, but that's a matter of a fact. So, and genetic analysis or genomic analysis that costs today, if you do exome with everything around 4,000 or 5,000, you can afford if you spend 60,000 therapy costs per year. But if you have $800 therapy costs a year, like in diabetes, why would you invest 4,000 in such a study? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not disrespectful. I just try to put that in the context of the payer. Yeah, because they have to pay that. So, and the way we go is through payers. I mean, we talk to payers. We have a medical product, so we get reimbursed. That's the one part. On pharma, when we talk to pharma, it's completely different. With pharma, there's no payer except pharma who pays. And there it's more like service projects, like, we help them in identifying new pathways, biomarkers, drug candidates, alternative use, I mean, these kind of things. And they're pretty much impressed to see that this little company with this little database, because pharma has much bigger data, can do that. And the reason we can do that is, come back to what I said, but this is also important to understand, pharma is still very vertically organized. It is, I mean, there are a lot of data, but these data are in vertical silos. And we built a whole system completely horizontal. So, I mean, what we can demonstrate is if you have a limited data set horizontally, you get mileage out, even big vertical silos don't get. And it's not easy for pharma to change that, because it is not difficult to change it, but it has to come with organizational changes. It would have to come with organizational changes. And these organizational changes in big pharma is, of course, always a challenge in itself.
So, I mean, to talk about the sort of general data thing in a more sort of general way, there's been some backlash recently with companies such as 23andMe selling genetic data to big pharma like GSK, with people claiming that individuals should retain the rights to their own data. I mean, what do you think about this, and does this impact what you're doing at Molecular Health?
I mean, America, as we all know, is completely different from Germany. I mean, another example, another company many of you may have heard about is Flatiron, and they collect oncology data from community oncologists in the United States and captured them and eventually sold to Roche. Don't even think about it in Germany. I mean, you do that once, you're dead. I mean, this is not possible. So what I want to say is, I mean, first of all, I think data belong to the patient, and if the patient wants to sell the data to 23andMe, do it. Yeah, no one can stop you from doing that. But if you collect these data as Flatiron did, namely I give you an EMR system and you give me your patient data, it doesn't work in Germany. So in Germany, but I think we're not through the discussion yet. I think in Germany, my belief, and I don't know, but I think the patient must be the owner in whichever way that has to happen. And then there may be trustees. And I think the first trustee of your health and non-health data is probably the hospital, because that's the organization that manages your health, if you will. So the hospital could be the trustee of your data, and then there should be clear rules if and how the hospital can use these data for research, to give it away for research, and to give it away for commercial users. So since patients never see money if the hospital sells your data to a commercial organization, there must be other reward systems for the patient. And I mean, look, I don't want to complicate the discussion here. It could be, you heard that bitcoins, I mean, blockchain models, for example. It could be money, so to say, to reduce your annual, spend with your insurer. I mean, it's not thought through at this time. All I say, it has to be a circle where the individual who allows to use your data has to get some kind of reward.
Well, I think it's high time we opened it up to the audience. So does anyone have any questions for Friedrich? This gentleman here.
Yes, I'd like to start. As we all know...
Sorry, there's a very big mic.
As we all know, dealing with physicians is a quite conservative thing. Predicting or giving advice to therapists, how much does it collide with the guidelines, the famous Leitlinien, and can a patient really benefit from this because a physician is kind of fixed to these guidelines?
First of all, I do not disagree on the conservatism. That's the first point. The second point is, we did an analysis. Whatever we calculate is about 70% along guidelines. Look, it's not that the guidelines are not stupid, but guidelines are stiff. Yeah? And you capture a certain biomarker world of an entity, but another biomarker world that does not fall, so to say, into the guidelines, does not fall under. So what I want to say is, you always in every entity have patients who will not profit from the guideline therapy because the cancer can be very diverse. That you know that. So 30% of the predictions or 30% of the recommendations we give are off-label. So and then the usual game starts. The game means the doctor can apply for off-label at the payer. You know how that goes, and the payer may say yes or no. The question is, does he say yes or does he say no? And what happens if he says no? So if he says no, either he goes back, the physician, to the guideline, maybe knowing it doesn't work, or he has to look and ask the patient for alternative financing. That's the way it is today.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Any further questions at the back, or anyone else? Oh, yeah, go for it.
Hi there, thank you for sharing. You mentioned about publications, maybe about 50% of the science that is being published is probably not biased or is not correct, and that effectively translates into, well, whatever therapies are going to be created around this, right? What will be, and this is basically a lack of at the end of the day, is a lack of reproducibility based on a lack of transparency. What will be your approach? What will suggest how to address this issue? Are we talking about a systemic problem in academia, or should we address the publishing houses? What will be in practical terms the way to address this?
Well, first of all, I don't think that 50% of publications who are not correct are intentionally not correct. Yeah, there may be, look, you go, I've been in the lab, and everyone who's been in the lab knows that. You may do a systemic mistake in the way you do an experiment. Yeah, it may happen. And you don't see that, and even the reviewer doesn't see it. It may happen. So what I want to say is, there's not necessarily bad intent. So that's the first thing. Sometimes there is, but that's another story. I mean, I think one of the ways, and I'm speaking as I think. I mean, one of the ways to possibly improve that is is really also apply machine learning technologies in the first set of when you get a publication, go through that. I mean, really filter out the obvious mistakes or come up with some first line of questions, yeah, where, because the system taking into account the rest of the world knowledge says, I mean, this is almost too unbelievable to be true. So that could be a help for the reviewer, so to say, to put the finger on certain questions, if you will. Otherwise, I go back to what I said before. I mean, there's still a lot that we just don't know. And if you tap into this unknown territory in knowledge, then, yeah, I mean, you may make a mistake, even if it's not intended.
So you mentioned patient should own their data, but the question is, do they really want to own their data? If I have my X-ray report or some my biopsy results, do I really want to own it if I don't have a better way to monetize it?
Well, I mean, ownership, I think, can have many forms. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I mean, owning doesn't mean you have a CD or a USB stick or whatever with your data or on the smartphone. That doesn't necessarily mean ownership. I mean, ownership can be also that your data are dispersed in different databases in different, hospitals and even at home at your disk or so. I mean, that means ownership. I think the point I want to make is a different one. I mean, data is a new currency. Yeah, we all know this, not only in healthcare. And since it is a new currency, why should you give away things for free? So I'm talking very capitalistically when I say that. So the question is, how can you participate if you give your data? I mean, I think it's of advantage for drug development, also for therapy, if you give your data. But on the other hand, I mean, you give away something that you own, and I think there need to be found models. That's what I want to say. That in a certain way give credit to this, and I think this has not been fully thought through. I don't say that I know the answer. I mean, there are companies who try to do that. I mean, today I read, I don't know whether you saw that Facebook paid teenagers to give data. Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time now, and I think society is learning with all of these cases how to deal with this. But I mean, also to tell you, I mean, some of you know Oxford Nanopore. They will come out with this, probably will come out with this USB stick. I mean, look, kids today bought, or 10 years ago, they bought Nintendo for $299 a game. This USB thing costs $299. So what will kids do? They will buy that, unless you stop it. So what will happen? Yeah, they spill on it, and they have their genome. So what they do, one click, and it goes into Facebook, I don't know where. Yeah, I mean, can you stop that? You can. Technically, you cannot. Yeah, and then you go like, look, I'm homozygous for blue eyes. What about us?
Yeah.
So Anmache 4.0. So no, I mean, what I want to say is we always need to think of systems for a generation that is so easy in dealing with these things that they sometimes may forget what they create when they do that. And I don't say I want to stop that. I mean, it's the future. We cannot stop that, and we shouldn't stop that. All I want to say is we have to deal with rules and with systems while at the same time these things happen. And so, I mean, sometimes just accept reality.
Makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone else? Okay, one more at the back there.
I'm just curious, when you try to bring your technology, your innovations, your new drugs to patients, do you have any problem from kind of qualification of doctors, the readiness and openness to accept these new innovations, new techniques? And also, do you have any problem from the medical authorities who normally try to prevent, I would say, some of these innovations, just to introduce more regulations, more this kind of trials and so on. Is it easy just if you develop a new drug or new technique just to bring it to patient to bed?
Authorities is not a problem. I mean, we have a medical product registration for this, so if you fulfill criteria, you get that device, and that allows you to reimburse. Doctors is more difficult. You said that on the conservatism, and I think it is a blend of. I think it has to do with insecurity, and insecurity turns into fear, and fear turns into Ablehnung. So you know what I mean. I mean, just not accepting. I do believe that the curricula, I mean, the way doctors are educated have to change. I think every doctor has to learn what machine learning is. I think every doctor has to know at least some program language, just to understand how that whole thing works. Yeah, because the future as a doctor will not be without whatever kind of IT support, scientific IT support. So the adaptation rate is slow, yes, but look, we cannot change that. The only thing we can do is we can try to explain and to demonstrate, and you have some adapters who are faster and some are not. I think there's another movement here, particularly in Germany, stronger than in the United States. It's the pathologists. They are on top of all this molecular data, and they also think that I think they also feel threatened, which I think is completely unnecessary, because even they will profit from this over the time. So it is a typical, how to say, welcome to, I wouldn't say revolution, I would say evolution, yeah, and it's always a bit pain in the game, sorry.
Okay, thank you everyone. Just to sort of finish off really, I just wonder, oh yeah, okay, one more, go for it.
Quick question, what percentage of your time is focused as CEO of molecular health versus Divini? And you mentioned the 3 TAs, and are you still focused on only those 3 therapeutic categories? And what innovations are kind of exciting you in Germany at the moment?
Oh.
Let's talk about Germany.
So on the time, it's 80% molecular health and 20% Divini. I mean, Divini, the companies run. I don't say there's nothing to do, but they run, and so that is, so it's 80-20. And on, I mean, the question on what is exciting is a good question. I mean, I have not 10 years ago. I do believe in gene therapies to come. I think it's now mature with the vectors. Definitely gene editing, not only CRISPR-Cas. Yeah, there are other technologies which are as exciting and maybe even more precise. Don't want to go into detail. I believe in this. Definitely cell therapy. I mean, I think the age of cell therapy is yet to come. So these are the things that, and I'm sure I forgot something, but these are 3 areas where I would say are as fascinating looking 10 years ahead as the other 3 themes that I had 10 years ago were at that time.
Let's hope mRNA comes out soon.
Well, mRNA I always said. I mean, I'm in the mRNA, as you probably know. Yeah. So, I mean, sorry if you give that Stichwort. I believe mRNA will be the broadest therapeutic class in medicine ever, because mRNA can do what no other molecule can do, and if you can bring the production of proteins into the body, yeah, and even with all the, I mean, individual differences, I mean, that is better, cheaper, faster than anything else. I mean, producing proteins industrially is very, very expensive. Yeah, I mean, producing mRNA is super cheap.
Okay, great, thanks. I think that pretty much sums it up actually, and that's what I was kind of going to ask anyway, so thank you very much, Frederick, that's great. Can I ask you all to have a round of applause for Frederick?